League of Legends, the most balanced game. Is it though? In this video slash podcast or whatever, I'm gonna go through a couple of points in order to understand if League is truly balanced, does it need a fix, or Riot Games fixing it, and also giving my fix. Now, throughout this video, I'm gonna talk about different points. There are gonna be, of course, topics that most of you guys would not like, and there are gonna be topics where I do feel like we're gonna share the same opinions on it. So let's start. Let's start by going through this notepad that I put here together. First of all, the top three big problems. I feel right now Riot Games have three big problems. One, player numbers going down, less revenue. I would say majority of the games nowadays are all going down, but it is what it is. Second, pro scene. Of course, their pro scene is dying. I would say outside of like MSI words, like everything else is just dying. And third, cheating and account sharing. They fixed the cheating, but I had to put here for something I'm gonna talk in the future. Um, let's the second point here, going back on time to analyze how Riot creates its own problems, and three, they're fixed to it. So what did they do to fix the players going down? So again, they're fixed to players going down. Well, first of all, there are many things that they try to do for this one, but these three ones are core things that they somewhat did to it, but play a big part in the future for Riot Games to create its own problems. First, spawn timers. We go back to patch 10.8. 10.8, this is where they changed the death timers. So wherever you would die in the lane, in order for the game to be less snowbally, you would have home guards and you would get into the lane as fast as possible. This patch was done on 10.8, which was April of 2020. This is a time where League was still having like insane numbers because pandemic just hit, and League tried to kind of like create an environment so the new players that would come in would not have such a bad experience of playing the game, going and dying, and then the game is basically over. So this is the first thing that they did, in my opinion, to get new players. Of course, they try to do a lot of things with different patches in order to make the game as more simple, but this here was focusing on dying, basically the number one thing that is of course important in League for new players. Objectives, bounties, years went by, a year or a year went by, and on 2021 they introduced objective bounties. Up to that point there were player bounties, but objective bounties were introduced here, and another mechanic for losing teams to get back into the game. As seen here, objective bounties are another way for losing teams to get back into the game, in addition to champion bounties. So this was another mechanic because around that time teams started, or games started to feel more of as a team game. We started to lose the concept of like 1v9. Everyone was agreeing like the game is going into that path, and Riot Games is like, okay, now we're gonna introduce objectives bounties. So we have a kind of like a barrier to prevent people from just dying and losing their ability to do much in game, and now another barrier for teams that are behind. So when you mix them together, you have games that are much more closer than they should be, and not by skill, but by Riot Games putting these things in. And the MMR trick. Now this is a completely different scenario, but these two together, again, it creates of course in a scenario where new players, they can get into the game and the game feels like maybe they're getting stumped, but they're not getting stumped as they would have been, and one or two couple of fights could go wrong for the enemy team, and boom, they're back into the game, and they're just gonna win it. And that creates a scenario where people feel like, oh yeah, I'm starting to understand the game, where in reality it isn't like that. Now with the MMR is a completely different subject. Around season 9, season 10, but around season 9 mostly, a lot of accounts were getting doomed. What do I mean by doomed? There was this term of like playing the game or overplaying the game, and then you would start to get far less LP gains than you would lose. You would get like plus 13, 14, and you would lose minus 17, 18, because that a normal gain back then was like plus 17, 16, and you would get the same. So you can call this as a conspiracy theory, but this is what I truly believe, and you can disagree with me on comments. But Riot Games saw like, okay, these players have all these accounts, so what do we do with them in order to just like go and grab new players from everywhere else? Why we don't get revenue from the same player base? Why we don't sell to them again? And how they can do that is super simple. They understood like what was the most important thing to the players was solo queue. So by having a lot of accounts doomed like that, they also made players to open new accounts. And guess what? Around that time frame, from 2019 to 2021, and then they fixed it, or 2022, around that time, you would get a new account, play normal games or ARAM, have, because those game modes have also MMR, matchmaking rating system, basically, that's what MMR means, hidden. And then whenever you go and play a rank, your solo queue first game is going to be based on that. So people would go on a new account, level it up, playing normal games, and their normal MMR would be like master, grandmaster, challenger, and then they would go and play solo queue, and their account will be juiced. They would get like plus 25, plus 24, and again in a scenario where other people were getting like plus 18. But here's the catch. Whenever you're playing on a new account, you don't have your skins. So let's say you're playing your lovely Yasuo, your lovely Zed. You don't have the skin. Of course, you're gonna pay, and there you go. That was a way to get revenue from the same player base. And League, it is in top of my head the only game that I feel like 9 out of 10 players, they have more than one account. Then they patched this, of course, but that was their ways of like getting new player base or getting revenue from the player base, and that was their fix. But again, this will play a part in the upcoming years, the years that we're currently living. Now we go on to fixing the pro scene, because number one problem in League is the pro scene. So what did they do around 2018, I think it was? They franchised the league. I even spelled it wrong. So why did they franchise it? I feel like they were looking at NBA, NFL, these types of leagues, where they would see that as an example, and they wanted to copy that. So they went with franchising to have a more stable league, or to have better wages and so on and so forth. Therefore, that created another problem. It created the problem of lower teams not having to fight for anything. Why? Because let's say you would see TSM or Cloud9 in 2014, 2015. Whenever you would see TSM fighting a bottom team, that game was still enjoyable to watch. Why? Because that bottom team was fighting to not get relegated. That bottom team was fighting with everything that they got, because next year they would not be, or next split, they wouldn't be on LCS. And by not being in LCS, they're losing far more than, I would say, a middle table team. Therefore, that game, you would see it, and you would have feeling towards that game, because you would be like, yeah, this game is cool because yeah, TSM is playing a bottom team, but that bottom team has to win. It must win. And that was the beauty behind it. New Days, as soon as those 2-3 teams are out of the equation to make it to playoffs, it's over. It's pointless to watch that game. Therefore, people started to lose interest on that. So franchising in the beginning was nice for the money side. Everyone was started to get like big wages, but then the viewers are down. Therefore, less less sponsors, and that's why it created its own problem. Then, by having these problems here of like spawn timers or objective mod, by having uh, patches to help new player base, the gameplay at the higher ranks such as pro scene became more boring, became more like whichever team would win that one fight, it would be like such a scaling scenario, or wherever the case may be, because again people would play far more in a defensive state, because they would be like, yeah, if I misplay that one, they have the bounties or wherever the case may be, and that one made, I would say, also less enjoyable to watch. The games became like boring to watch and whatnot. So Riot Games is like, okay, what do we do with this scenario? Because League has viewers. If you go on Twitch, League still has views. In order to present those numbers to their their uh, their sponsors, they were like, okay, let's promote streamers. Let's give this platform to streamers. So you have Casual or whatever the name is, and all these streamers who are streaming the pro scene, and the pro scene is like, yeah, look how much views we have on LCK or LCS or this or that or that. So they can go to their to their sponsors and say, yeah, we still have like this type of views. But in reality, yeah, they have those types of views, but guess what? Since the game is slowly dying, people are playing less and less, those streamers as well will have less views. Therefore, this is not an ideal fix to fix the pro scene. It doesn't work. In the future, it's gonna fail 100%. The good thing, the first good thing that they did here, I'm gonna go to point number 3, is Fearless Draft. Whoever created Fearless Draft, that's a person who know what is he doing. Now that person could have been the same person that did some mistakes here, but that person, smart person, that person needs a promotion. Fearless Draft, it is one of the best things that happens to pro scene, because you would not see one player with the same champion or wherever, and yet we see almost the same kind of like drafts back and forth. But imagine if there wasn't a Fearless Draft, we would have the same teams over and over and over and over. Now it's almost the same, but it is still different. So Fearless Draft, it did good things to pro scene. So this is one of the good things to this one. Now Atakan, I have Atakan here. You guys might be saying like, Atakan, why Atakan? When they introduced Atakan, they introduced it as a fix for a lot of pro scene, because you would have, let's say, SKT playing this specific team, and at minute 20 they would get a Baron and the game would end like literally like at 23-24 minute. Or do we have games like that? Yes, but a lot of games go to Barons. A lot of games go to 27, 28, 30 minute mark, which is the sweet spot, I guess, for their idea of playing the game. Therefore, Atakan was introduced, I would say, in pro scene in order to prevent those scenarios. Now, Atakan, it creates its own problems, I would say. Why? Because in solo queue, you would have games that are one-sided. We all have been there, where the enemy is either stomping us or we are stomping the enemy. All the years up to this year, you would go and grab Baron at 21 minutes, 20 minutes, or 22, whatever. You would grab that Baron. Let's say 21 minutes. And your team, of course, is not at the pro scene level, depending on the division. They might fuck around and find out, and they would just like lose a fight and lose the Baron. But guess what? Another Baron is going to be in 5 minutes. So by minute 25, 26, you are still fighting for that second Baron. and the enemy has not scaled that much in order for them to come back. Therefore, yeah, the second Baron is gonna be hard, but still, you get the second Baron, and everyone will understand like, yeah, we cannot fuck around now. We have to end with the second Baron, and you would most likely end the game and finish the game. Fast forward 2025. At minute 20 you get Atakan, and I do feel Atakan as a permanent buff is far better than Baron. People might disagree with me, but whatever. But Atakan, it's never as a quest to end the game. Baron, it is a quest to end the, it pushes you to siege with the minions, it pushes you to close the game. Therefore, players are not gonna look to close the game or whatever. So Bear now is at minute 25. Not a lot of teams are going to get, no matter how ahead you are, you're not going to get it at spawn immediately. So let's use the same example as I used before. You're going to get it at like 26. You get at 26, your team does some mistakes, they get caught, they die. Next Baron is at minute 31. 31. You know, at minute 31 is a big difference from minute 25, 26. Why? Because now every champion has scaled, and every mechanic in the game, from going back here to objective bounting, spawn timers, whatever, have played their full effect. Therefore, that minute 31 or 32, it's not going to be anymore like, oh, this team is ahead. No. It's going to be an even scenario. And then when you add factors in as players being tilted, which is number one in solo queue, not only league but in every position, you created this scenario now that league has become like a movie where you're expected something to happen towards the end of the game at almost every scenario. So therefore, in my opinion, this is a problem because it removes, quote unquote, the fun or the entertainment part, and you're forced to play a game without mistakes. And a game without mistakes, of course, at the higher divisions, it should be like that because you're playing good players. But it is the same scenario as you fighting another person in like boxing or whatever, and having the ability to fight that person multiple times and then losing one and saying, yeah, that guy beat you. Same story here. Yes, the team that is ahead, that got the Baron in the first place, they shouldn't lose that fight. They should win the game, but we are not talking about perfect scenario. People are created to do mistakes, therefore mistakes will happen. But how it was designed before, it was designed that whatever you did all the way to minute 20 to get that lead, you're not gonna lose it in just one fight. You're gonna lose it in one fight, okay, but in 5 minutes 25 you have another Baron, and the enemy team has not scaled yet because it's 25 minutes. They aren't at highest level. They don't have like 3-4 items. Therefore, your second Baron, it is literally a reminder like, look, if you fuck up this time around, yeah, you threw the game. Game is over. But now it's not like that. And Baron at minute 31, 32, it's not like a warning of you fucked up. It's a warning of like, who gets this Baron will win the game. Not like, oh, if you get it. No, the enemy is now at the same playing field. So therefore, that's why I have Atakan here. I feel like Atakan did his job to promote in pro scene to have longer games. But in solo queue, it ruined the aspect of just playing the game. Like, you don't have like fast game. There one type of game where the enemy is tilted and they end, you can end the game super fast. And those types of games where they go at least to 28, 29, 30 minutes, no matter what. So that's their way of fixing the pro scene. It created damages to solo queue, and their fixes to solo queue or player base, bringing new player base, created problems to their pro scene. So see, kind of like Riot Games is trying to fix one problem, but it creates another problem. Now let's go down. Their fix to cheating and account sharing. Cheating, they did Riot Vanguard. Another good thing, similar to Fearless Draft. I feel like there was a time where I would get a cheater in like literally like 3 out of 5 games or 2 out of 5 games. Now I might get 1 in like 100. Props to Riot Games for introducing Riot Vanguard. A lot of people, they complained when Riot Vanguard was released, in the sense of like, oh, but it's at kernel level, like why Riot Games is doing this to me, blah blah blah. But in order to have these fixes, they're gonna be compromises that we have to make. Now I put 3 question marks here because they are saying like in 2 patches. We are, as I'm currently speaking, we are at patch 25.16. They say that they're gonna do a big purge of accounts in 2 patches, so 25.18. Let's see what they're gonna do with that. But that's what they're doing with the third problem that they have. Now, my fix to all of this and how we can move forward and have League as one of those games that will have a longevity like no other game before. First of all, I put here legends and legend and legends. So the reason why I put here, it's to separate players and a player, basically teams and solo queue. First of all, create a game mode completely different from new players. I think they're already doing something like that, but whatever. A mix of URF and a small map with not a lot of objectives. What do I mean by this? Let's say you're a new player, you go into this game mode and it's all just about pressing the buttons. It's all about just like you getting the habit of moving with the mouse, you getting the habit of pressing the buttons. You shouldn't get into a game as a new player and you're playing and you use an ability and now you have to wait 15 seconds to use that ability. Like what? And you'll be like, oh, but that's mobile. Yeah, I do understand, but that's how people are never gonna get to you in the first place. So create a game mode with like Orf where everything is like you can spam it, and then by doing so, that game is gonna be a little bit more fun than just normal Summoner's Rift. But the most important part, people will learn how to navigate by moving, and people will know how to land their spells. Those are the 2 most important things. Then you can learn the strategy behind it. You cannot go into League and forcing to learn strategy, forcing to learn champions, forcing to learn how to move around. These 3 things, like people are gonna be overflown. So better is just to give them the champions, let them do whatever they want, and do that. So that's again just a game mode for new player base. You cannot play other game mode, just this one. Okay, in whenever you reach, let's say, level 15, you can play ARAM, and then level 20 or 25 you can unlock Summoner's Rift. But that's the fix to bringing new players, and then promote that one with whatever, with a show or wherever. Like in the next season of Arcane, have champions that are gonna participate on that, have like literally just an episode for that one, promote it to streamer, wherever. People are gonna enjoy that because people enjoy Orf. Second, solo queue patches have to be different from team patches and more rewarding for the ladder. What do I mean by this? The first thing, in my opinion, that they did good for pro scene was Fearless Draft. Does this apply to solo queue though? No. How can it? Like, you play in this game, let's say Yasuo, next game you can play Yasuo again. You may be like, oh, but you're playing against different players. That's the problem. People and developers have to realize that you cannot have the same patches for pro scene and solo queue. They're completely 2 different environment. They're gonna go and counter each other, similar to the problems that I showcased here that they have created on its own. So by having different patches, people or Riot can create an environment that is fun to watch, but also it's fun to play. And that would completely change the dynamic of these patch notes, so Riot Games can have more agency on whatever they're doing. Now you'd be like, okay, but that ruins the league as a concept, because if I'm playing and I'm watching the stream, it's a little bit different. It could be a little bit different, but this is where I said here, legends and legend. Similar how we used to have, I don't know, whenever you guys started playing the game, but instead of flex queue, there was teams where you can create many teams, and in that team you can play solo queue. Well, not solo queue, but you can play Summoner's Rift, and you can climb. And with that team, you could climb all the way to Challenger, and then with that Challenger team, you can play in an environment that was below pro scene, below LCS, and then if you win that one, you will get to LCS, and by winning LCS you can get to Worlds, and by winning that one you can get to be a world championship. So here create a way that the team can get all the way to win a world championship. You'd be like, wait, that's insane. No, it isn't. Origin did that 2015 or 2016, around that time. Xpeke was a player, if you guys know the Kasadin backdoor, very famous, was a player that was at Fnatic, mid laner at Fnatic, and he's like, okay, I'm gonna go and create another team. Created Oregon or Origin, whatever it's pronounced. And then they went to Challenger as a 5 people, and then from there they entered below LCS. I don't remember what was the name of the league, and then they won that one, and then they entered LCS, and then by entering LCS they qualified for the Worlds. That doesn't exist anymore. That doesn't exist because of franchise. So you don't have these stories anymore. You just have the same teams doing the same shit. It's just like, it's just boring. It's just boring. Back to solo queue. More rewards for the ladder. Create tournaments specific for top, I don't know, like top 2, top 3, top 5 players of each region. Have a specific tournament just for solo queue players, so they can battle at 1v1, or give more, like, people in Challenger used to get like jackets, and now like, oh, but it's too much, there are too many regions or whatever. Yeah, then I mean, solo queue ladder is gonna lose its value. You have to give. Create like more badges. Create like specific titles. Just like we have titles whenever you're loading screen, like bot diff or like mid diff or whatever. Create specific titles that you can only earn it if you are at this specific ladder. They might have that one, I'm not sure, but create it like rank 1, for example. Like imagine you're like, you're spectating someone on stream, or maybe you're that challenger who's playing, and then the enemy has like rank 1 badge. You're like, fucking hell, man, I'm playing against rank 1. It feels like truly like again, a place where people would like to climb. Like, what's the point of climbing now? What do you gain? Like nothing. Okay, you get scouted by teams, so you can get offers to play as pro team. But if you don't even get that, what's the point of being there to begin with, just so you can flex? So that's the fix of new players, solo queue, and team. Basically, how can you create and play with friends? Now, you might say, but where can I find a team? Like, I don't have friends, I just play by myself. Create a scenario similar to Clash, where you can recruit people and people can recruit you. It's just that simple. So you can always play as 5 people with voice in that game mode. And the last thing for solo queue, in order to play solo queue, you must verify with ID similar to Korean servers. In Korea, in order to play, you have to have an ID. This will combat account sharing, cheating, whatever, boosting quite a lot. Why? Because with the new system of them banning stuff, but also adding this other thing where, like, look, if you're banned, that ID is gone, bro. You might need to use the ID of your grandma or some shit like that. But accounts now are limited, and accounts have real value. It will create a perfect environment, not necessarily to have players be less toxic. People are going to be toxic no matter what, but it's going to create an environment that people are going to be a little bit more worried about their accounts, because if their account is gone, like, they need a new account or they need a new ID. People are not gonna like this whatsoever. It's gonna be similar to wherever I added Vanguard. People are gonna complain. Majority of people who complain are gonna be those who are actually trolling and whatnot. Oh, I need, like, why would I add my ID? Like, no one is gonna care about your ID. Like, it's just right. It's just gonna just have that one, similar to majority of the sites. Wherever you do a transaction, whatever they require an ID, it's gonna be similar to that. And by having these 4 points in, you're creating a scenario where a player can enjoy solo queue, a player can watch pro scene, because it's not for franchise. You can see multiple teams, different stories and whatnot. Can create a team that, if they are good enough, they can participate in that one. There are rewards in both scenarios, solo queue and 5v5s if you're good enough. And solo queue, it's a more respectable place to play because of how important one account is, and by losing that account, it's more or it has more value than losing an account new days, where you can just go on and open a new account and nothing happens. So that's my fix to the state of League. That's kind of like how I view League. Again, as I said in the beginning, you guys might have different views or different way of viewing the game. To you, the League might be completely balanced, or it might be a shit show. But let me know in the comments below what you guys think. This video was a little bit longer than my usual videos, but yeah, drop a like and subscribe if you like this one, and catch you guys on the next one. Peace.